Hey, Chris.
Hey, Drew.
Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast?
Why, yes, I have.
When we were trying to get this podcast off the ground, we had a lot of questions. Like, how do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen to? How do we make money podcasting? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now just by reading this ad.
Right now?
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now?
That means if you want to get a podcast going and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. Join me and Chris and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. We can't wait to hear your podcast.
What makes you afraid? Some of All Fear lives at the crossroads between our greatest phobias and the horror movies we love to experience. Part pop culture and part psychology. It's time to find out why we're all so scared of the dark. I love crafty things, so if anybody wants to craft me anything, I would love that.
You know, they've got little somebody, and I wish I could remember her Twitter name. Maybe she'll be a listener at some point. But she I guess knits little horror characters.
Oh, you showed me those. Those are so
they're
cool.
so fucking cool. I love them. They're awesome.
Some of my friends got little roller girls done by someone who does the same thing, and they personalized them so that they actually look like them, and that's really
badass.
Cool.
I like
so
it.
So shout out to people who do awesome creative things. You guys rock.
I feel like we're dragging a little bit because this episode is it's depressing.
It is deep, man.
It's really, really, really dark. It's a dark episode. It's probably going to be the darkest episode we ever do.
It has been a really trudge through it. You know, it has not been a pleasant experience.
I don't
like it. I don't trust it. I don't want it around.
It's, I don't think even the fear of death episode, whatever we do with that, because that's probably going to be, that might even be lighthearted. I don't know. Compared to this one, it's going to be, I can't think of one that's going to be more depressing and more dark.
Your movie selection, too, had a lot to do with this, because
I don't know how else you could do them. I don't know how else you could do this one. What else are you going to do?
I mean, you were right, I think. I think you were right in the choices, but I didn't like it. I don't like it. I had to bathe after watching Martyrs because I felt, ugh.
It is, but
my soul feels, ugh.
It was the right choice, though. I swear to you, it's the best one, and I'm gonna defend it, and we'll get to it eventually. But we're back, guys. We're back. Let's get this more upbeat. Hi, we're back for episode 4 of the Sum of All Fear podcast.
Yay, episode 4! Thanks for listening.
Woohoo! We made it through 4 episodes, and hot damn, it's been a pretty good week. It's been
a nice week.
Yeah, as far as podcasting goes,
except for this topic.
Except for this topic that we had to research that really brought us down.
Really bad.
But we hit 100 plays this week on the podcast.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
So we have some actual subscribers now, not just my mom and your mom and
our best
and our friends.
Yeah, that are amazing.
There's some people that are listening outside of our immediate circle of people, I think.
And you're amazing too.
We're getting some great feedback, good constructive criticism, which we invite and we would love.
And we incorporate, we listen. So
yeah, and praise. We've had some praise, which is nice. That's it's good to have your constructive criticism, fluffed with some praise.
And not one person yet has been like, these dickheads are awful. So thanks for also not doing that.
That's gonna happen.
I know.
And it's probably already happened in their heads. They just haven't come out and said it yet.
But that's great. So you don't need to take that action. Not everyone needs to hear your opinion.
That's true. Social media has taught us that not everybody needs to hear your opinion.
And that opinions are very skewed.
But we mentioned last episode Metal Chris and Tori and Heath and Brent and a few others before, but this week we also heard from our wonderful friend Lacey.
Woohoo!
Whose boyfriend, by the way, apparently has a sweet kick-ass VHS horror collection that I have got to check out at some point soon.
You guys
Lacey,
have to get together.
we need to go on like a double date soon and just go get some drinks.
Horror nerd out.
Yeah, so I can, get access to this sweet ass VHS horror collection. Also, Nick the French Jew,
Woo!
another good friend, horror fan, sent us some great feedback and he listened and we appreciate that. And some new fans have popped up on Twitter this week, which was really cool.
It's fun to see all of the play and everybody chatting. So keep that up. We really love it. Thank you.
Yeah, we heard from a guy named Caleb, who is the host of the Macabre Media podcast. Go subscribe to this podcast right now because it's fucking great. The most recent episode, he interviews David H. Thornton, who plays Art the Clown in Terrifier, which was one of my top 10 horror movies of the year. And the interview is awesome. It's such a great interview, and I love that character. He is so freaking creepy. And I showed Chris hasn't seen it, but I showed her just the picture of Art the Clown, and she was, not a fan.
No, I'm good.
But go listen to Macabre Media Podcast. Thank you, Caleb, and all your boys for liking our page and for checking it out.
Thanks for your hospitality and your feedback and your willingness to kind of bring us into this crazy podcasting world with you and jump along the ride. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but this was great. After he listened to the first episode, he changed his personal Twitter name to John Denver, the Death Harbinger, from our last episode, which is awesome. Which was super awesome.
The highlight of my year already.
Freaking cracked me up. So go follow Macabre Media Podcast. Give it a listen. Those guys are really cool. And I'm already a big fan already. And I can't wait to get to their previous episodes because over the holidays he hit on Christmas Evil, which I had watched for the first time this year. He also hit on I think Silent Night, Deadly Night, and some other ones. No, Black Christmas was the other one, which I got to see at the New Beverly in Hollywood, which was fucking awesome. It was so cool. I got to see that and Silent Night, Deadly Night in a double feature. You were nerding out
so hard while you were there.
Man, I was like hanging out. I wasn't hanging out, but I was like sitting in the same row as like one of the Shockwaves hosts, Elric Kane, and I didn't say anything to him, but it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. So check those guys out. Really cool. And again, real quick, we want to thank you for listening. Please subscribe, give us a rating, give us a review if you're so inclined. Follow us on Facebook at Some of All Fear Podcast and on Twitter at Some of All Fear Pod, P-O-D. We want you to tell us if you hate us. Tell us if you love us. Tell us if you're just super lukewarm about us. And don't forget, we're on Apple iTunes. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on Stitcher. We're on Overcast and a bunch of other platforms. So, got that out of the way.
Yeah, you're sweating already.
That's not surprising. I'm probably about 25 pounds overweight. This is not. I'm drinking whiskey.
Oh, you never looked better.
Oh, aren't you sweet?
You do have some gray in your beard, though, that wasn't there.
This gray has been there for quite some time. In fact, I remember when I first started getting it, you were like, "You have something in your that's not.
No,
that's not. That's just gray."
That was great.
So some people actually like us talking to each other, which is nice. And I enjoy talking to you. This is the most we talk to each other all week long. Not because we don't like each other. It's just, it's busy.
Yeah, it is. It's been a lot this week, but we're happy to be back, and I'm happy to be talking to you.
Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy this. I really am starting to get comfortable enough with this that I'm actually...
You're so good at the media part, too, and the researching and putting things together and your writing. Oh, you're so good at that.
I just enjoy it. It's really fun. It's a fun hobby. It's a nice little side project here. And I like the fact that we get the chance to research some cool shit and blend our interests. And I know that I've always been interested in psychology. So I love the fact that we get to dive into psychology because we get to kind of, chat about all the things that you've actually studied academically that I've only studied, as a layman. And then I get to introduce you to movies that traumatize you for the rest of your life.
Oh, today's was bad. And I love particularly beating you at our favorite game show.
Is it time for that already?
Yeah, it's time.
It's already time?
It's time for me to inflict the pain.
All right. And now, it's taking the podcast world by storm. It's time for the only phobia-based trivia game known to man.
fear? You say it now.
What the fear?
There you go. Okay, you have to say it like that.
That's right, folks. It's your favorite trivia game hosted by world-renowned brain expert, Chris Shadig.
That's not true. But
it's what the fear time.
But it's what the fear time. Okay, are you ready?
No, I'm not ready because I have failed miserably at this game. So badly.
I look forward to whipping your ass.
I feel like, and I've gone back and been like, man, how was I so stupid? I should have just, not that I would have known them because they're not easy, but.
Why do you?
But I at least need to make up better, shitty guesses.
Yeah, no, your shitty guesses last time were pretty shitty.
They're really bad. I'm overthinking this.
Yeah, no, you're overprocessing it.
All
Overhandling.
Right.
Okay,
all right.
Are you ready?
Overhandling?
You're overhandling it. Overhandling, bud.
S&P.
S&P is a choice for me. All right, you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, ready? Your first fear is pedophilia.
Pedophilia.
No, I'm sorry. Pediophobia. Holy crap. I said
pedophilia. That sounds like...
I was like, okay, it's kind of like...
pedophilia is...
I gave you a major clue, so...
Well, not like pediophobia. It shouldn't be that hard. I'm going to say pedophobia, right? Spell it for me. P-E-D-I-O phobia. Pediophobia.
Pediophobia.
That is the fear of children.
You're really close, but you're not right still. So.
Fear of giving birth?
No. Wrong. Again.
Fear of playgrounds?
Worse! You're way off.
The fear of ghost children. I don't know. What is it? I have to be pretty damn close.
You're in the ballpark. It's the fear of dolls.
Damn it. I swear to you, I saw this week because that artist, Cross, I think is his name.
Oh, the one that you
the one who illustrates them. I swear to you, he has an
phobia.
illustration of this phobia.
Okay.
I should have gotten that one.
The
fear of dolls. That's a good one.
Fear of dolls, with the Greek root of
I'm Talkie Tina, and I'm gonna kill you.
Oh. The Greek paideon, which means little child, right? So you're in the ballpark, but you were still wrong. And Channing Tatum
fame?
Of sexy eyebrow lifting fame.
Of taking his shirt off in movies fame?
Of dancing all over my naked body.
I heard Chris Pratt has his dad bod back. When is Channing Tatum going to get his dad bod?
Oh, man. The second Channing Tatum gets his dad bod in, I'll be all over that.
What is wrong with you people?
Anyways, he has a very intense fear of dolls. And recently on an episode of Ellen, he admitted to his fear, expressing, I just think they're freaky. And she responded by bringing a doll out and shoving it in his face while he proceeded to tip over the chair.
So, should we talk briefly about Creepy Brownie Doll?
Oh God, I hate Creepy Brownie Doll.
So my mom back in the 50s, must have been in the late 50s, when she was a kid, had this doll that we have now coined Creepy Brownie Doll. And Creepy Brownie Doll sits about the size of about a 3-year-old. A human child. And it is dressed in a brownie costume. And it stands and actually will walk with you if you grab its hand and start walking. It'll move its feet and legs. Its arms and legs. And we found this doll, I think sometime in the mid-90s, up in the attic of my grandparents' house. And we have used that doll now to scare the shit out of people, family and friends, for a couple generations.
There's actually a Creepy Brownie Doll page, isn't there?
There is a Creepy Brownie Doll Facebook page, although I heard it had been hacked. My brother now has, Heath, who we've talked about on this podcast, now owns, or is the possessor, or who is possessing who?
Possessed.
Of Creepy Brownie Doll. Yeah, he has it. And we actually took a road trip with her, too. Remember?
Yeah, I remember.
When my grandma passed away, we drove with Creepy Brownie Doll from Texas to Tennessee.
Why didn't you bury her with Grandma?
We didn't. We did not. And Grandma was always a big defender. She did not like the way that we would treat Creepy Brownie Doll. She thought she would have wanted
a
sweet
to be buried
little girl.
With her.
She might have.
She would have wanted it.
Yeah. All right. So that was the first.
Grandchildren.
That was the first one. I was close on that one. That was probably the closest I've been since eggs.
But then you went way out of bounds again.
What are you talking about? Ghost children is as close to dolls as you can get.
No, and then your guesses got worse as you kept guessing.
No, ghost children was my last guess, and it was a good one. So screw you. That was a good guess. You can fuck the right. You can fuck right off.
You can fuck the right off.
Fuck the right off. That's what happens. That's what happens in April.
I'm gonna tell my tax guy to do that. You can fuck the right off.
Fuck the right off.
Okay, are you ready to lose again?
I am ready to lose again.
Okay, koimetrophobia.
Koimetrophobia. K-O-I?
No, Koimetro phobia. Koimetrophobia.
Fear of being caught having sex.
You're really, really wrong.
Okay. Well, I'm not surprised.
Are you thinking coitus?
Coitus, yeah, why not?
And metro.
And metro.
So like having coitus in the city?
In the city,
That was your logic?
That was my logic. That was exactly my logic.
Holy shit, there's something
Thank you for breaking... But you know what? You figured it out, so it was not that far off. It couldn't have been that far off.
I see how you got that. But you got to remember, most of these are from Greek roots, right?
Yeah. Which is where we get most of these words for these things. So I just assume.
It's from the Greek.
I studied Greek. You know that, right?
Yeah.
And I still suck at this.
You didn't study very hard, apparently.
No, I really didn't.
Because you suck at this. It's for the Greek koimetro, meaning burial place, for a fear of cemeteries.
Ooh.
Fear of cemeteries. And funny enough, Jug's favorite person in the world, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Sarah Michelle Gellar, is terrified of cemeteries.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, she was brought to tears.
During scenes where she
had
to
go in actual cemeteries.
The original Buffy the Vampire Slayer went to a high school by it. The one from the movie. Can't remember her name. Anyways, I'm not surprised that I got it wrong. Because I'm coming to grips with the fact that this game was only designed to, make me look stupid.
Yeah.
Which I do a really good job of myself. So.
Well, it was also designed to elicit responses from you that were indicative of personality traits, like
having sex in public places.
Like having sex in public places.
Is that a personality trait that I exhibit on a regular basis?
Yeah. No.
We won't talk about our other friends.
No, just thinking
roofs,
about that
ladders.
Kind of stuff.
You know who you are.
All right. Are you ready for the last one?
Mm-hmm.
Think you can do this?
I really don't.
I believe in
you. You have completely sapped me of all of my confidence.
This game is like an ink blot test, but with words.
I'm going to put that in the description. What the fear? Like an ink blot test.
But with words.
With words.
Okay. Your last word is trypophobia. Trypophobia.
Trypophobia.
Trypo phobia.
That's the fear of needles.
No, you're wrong.
Dang it.
You're wrong.
I'm really close.
You're wrong.
No Donald Trump, please. I really want to keep politics off this podcast.
It is.
Trying so hard.
Nope, it is the fear of tiny holes in weird clusters or patterns.
Oh, I knew. See, you stole all of these from his illustrations, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I actually found them somewhere else.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I think he has an illustration for all of these.
But I thought when you sent me that today that I was going to lose this whole one because a lot of them were on there.
Well, that's why I guessed needles, because I think it's really similar. I think needles is actually really similar. I think the phobia of needles is something really close to that.
Well, it comes from the Greek root trypo.
Fear of sharp or being poked with things or injections or something. Tryponophobia. Tryponophobia is...
So it's from the same...
Is needles.
From the same root for trypo, which means boring hole.
That makes sense.
Haha, like your mom.
Oh!
So people who suffer... Sorry. Did you just get that?
No. That's really bad. That was terrible. Name of your sex tape. Boring hole.
Name of your mom's sex tape. People such as I can't even talk right now.
I'm telling her you said that.
No. People such as Kendall Jenner of, I don't really know what she does, fame, with the Kardashians.
Her sister had a sex tape.
Oh, maybe that was the boring hole she had the fear of.
And I've seen it. And if any sex tape ever deserved the title of just boring hole, that was the one. That was definitely the one.
Well, I mean, so the triggers include things like pancakes as they're popping, at the top.
So when the holes get like all porous at the top?
Honeycomb, lotus flowers, anything with like real symmetrical holes.
Where the hell does this develop from?
I don't know. It's posited that maybe it's an evolutionary reaction of disgust and disease avoidance, because you would want to avoid things that look like that evolutionarily, right? So that's what it's posited from, that it would kind of serve in that disgust reaction process. But
I gotta look up this guy, the artist. You guys have seen him, I'm sure, because he's been all over social media a lot, but he's going to be at Sinister Creature Con.
Yeah.
And he did that was one of the phobias that he covered, which I thought was really funny, because I was like, where the hell did that phobia come from? Like, that's a weird phobia. Sean Cross is his name. So check out his art, because that guy's super cool. I'm sorry, Sean Koss, Coss, not Cross. SeanKossArt.com. That guy does basically visual interpretations of what phobias look like. And he's done it also for various mental disorders, right? Like PTSD and anxiety disorder.
And his anxiety depiction is spot on too.
Yeah, absolutely. Check him out. I'm actually looking forward to maybe stopping by the Sinister Creature Con in Sacramento and checking out his stuff.
Drop a link on the page to some of his stuff.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely. That would be cool. I will link it on our Facebook page.
And you're still over.
Not surprising. I was closer this time. I was at least, you kept saying I was way off, and I wasn't. I was really, really, really close. Even Needles was close, because boring of a hole, right?
That was close, yeah.
Boring holes.
Boring holes.
Boring holes is going to be, boring holes is going to be brought up a lot in this podcast. I have a feeling it's going to become a hashtag. It's gonna be hashtag boring holes, and people are gonna send us pictures, like videos of the most boring the most boring porn they've ever seen.
No, it should be of trypophobia things, like symmetrical holes.
That's too literal. I think it'd be much more fun the other way around.
Oh, see, that's why you answered.
It could be both.
That's why you answered the way that you did.
Could be either or. All right, so we've had our fun. We are done with What the Fear.
Yep, we're done.
We are touching on... That sounds dirty.
Now your brain is just
My brain is gone now. You've just led me down this boring hole train.
You led yourself down the boring hole, so don't blame me for your grossness.
Instead of the rabbit hole, we're down the boring hole. I am now down the boring hole, and this is not getting us in the mood for this really depressing.
No, we're still
episode that I think we need to laugh at the beginning so that we can avoid crying at the end, right?
Yeah, for sure. I did my crying in the bathtub beforehand.
Oh, I hope that's not true. You're not supposed to cry.
I'm an empath. I feel a lot of emotions. I feel a lot of things. I have a lot of feelings.
You cried when your Saints lost.
I did.
Yesterday.
That was some bullshit. That's why. Everyone knows it. Even bookies. Bookies, who are the bitchiest with their money, gave back people's money who bet on that game. Because they were like, nope.
I saw that.
That shit was wrong.
It was pretty bad. It was
bookies.
Pretty bad. Yeah,
bookies.
I'm starting to go conspiracy theorist. And think that the NFL maybe really is rigged. All that time they spend looking at the replays, they're just talking to like the Illuminati, and the Illuminati is telling them, giving them instruction on how to handle the next play. That's my. You've got like You got past presidents and various world leaders, and they're just
and the heads of past presidents
chirping in these officials' ear and telling them to call or not call certain things.
Yeah,
it's bullshit, man.
I don't know what goes on.
And it sucks because we were going to be in New Orleans on the Super Bowl, so we would have had just the craziest party in New Orleans on the Super Bowl. However, we did talk about how maybe it's a good thing that we don't have a bunch of annoying football fans running around the city while we're trying to have our vacation.
Yeah.
So
I think it'll be less stressful.
Yeah, it's a catch-22.
But it also would have been really fun.
It would have been fun. It would have been like a mini Mardi Gras.
Kind of.
Totally would have been.
Kind of.
Yeah, the party would have been nuts.
I would have treated
unless they lost, in which case it would be like the largest New Orleans funeral procession ever.
Exactly.
With the jazz bands.
Yeah, we could talk a lot about pain. A lot about pain.
This is gonna be. I have a feeling this is gonna be a long episode.
It is.
But this is good shit.
Sorry.
Algophobia is our topic today.
It is.
And it comes from the Greek word algos, which means pain, very plain and simply.
Yep.
So algophobia is our topic. This was an interesting one. I'm interested to hear about the actual clinical diagnosis of algophobia, because it's not. I don't think it's what people are going to expect. There's a little bit of it's a little more nuanced than I thought it was. So please, let us know about this phobia.
Yeah, it's a lot more nuanced than that. And per request of the fans, I wanted to start off with a really high level.
The fans makes it sound like we have a lot.
Well,
the fan.
The fan. Sorry.
Per the request of the fan.
The fan. Per request of the fan, I'm gonna try and give kind of a high level overview of how the brain functions in general, and then I'm going to go deeper into what happens within the brain when certain things go on. That way, in future episodes, we can reference this. And if you need a refresher, you can kind of always come back to this time, and I'm sure I'll repeat myself as well. So we're going to start off really talking about the brain itself and kind of the central processors of the human body, which are the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord, right? Those are the go-to things. And then the peripheral nervous system, which includes all of the body's nerves and these things called gray ganglia. That basically...
That'd be a great metal band.
Gray ganglia. To the stage, please.
No, coming to the stage, gray ganglia. Yeah. That's gonna be John Denver, the Death Harbinger's next personal Twitter name.
Right.
Gray ganglia.
Yeah, opening up for John Denver, Death Harbinger. Gray ganglia.
No, John Denver, the Death Harbinger, I decided was an emo band.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, like John Wilkes' Kissing Booth or Elephant. What was that one? Oh man, Cage the White Elephant. Was that the name of the band? I think that was the name of the band. Anyways, go ahead. And Jimmy Eat World.
And Jimmy Eat World, which I've been listening to a lot lately.
Because of this topic this week.
Right.
Should listen to Dashboard Confessional.
No, I don't need to be more depressed. So really we're going to stick to talking about the central nervous system. So the brain's effect on what the spinal cord does and where that information is sent out into the body and what to do. So we're going to really start in the brain. Now in the brain there's two types of processes. There's inhibitory processes and excitatory processes. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's a lot of words. Words are hard.
Yeah, I know. And basically what happens is the brain is made up of millions of neurons. And neurons have an axon, which is kind of like the butt end of it, that spits out chemical signals, which include neurotransmitters. And it gets taken up by the finger end. It kind of looks like a bunch of fingers. So there's this empty space in between all of these. And
would you call that empty space the boring hole?
That might be the boring hole.
I
don't know. They called it a synaptic cleft, but that also sounds kind of dirty too.
Boring. Yeah.
Boring.
I think the synaptic cleft goes inside your boring hole.
So when neurotransmitters are released, those neurotransmitters are either excitatory or inhibitory, which means they either slow down processes or they speed up processes, right? And they get picked up by these finger receptors called dendrites, and then get translated into an electrical signal that travels down the axon and gets pooped out at the end of the axon and happens all over again until it reaches its final destination. So that happens.
We talked about that last episode.
Oh, I know. Final destination. That was horrible too. Gosh, why do we do this to ourselves? This is torture in and of itself.
Well, it's torture for you. I enjoy it.
Right. So we could get into like lobes and stuff like that, but that's really high level right now. And so we're just talking the minutia of the brain is these axon and dendrite connections, and how they either spit out neurotransmitters that get things going or stop things, right? So you get things going neurotransmitters. An example of that would be dopamine, which is responsible for feelings of delight. And research lately has shown that it's also seems to play an important role in feelings of dread. So too much dopamine causes an excess of this to be reuptaken.
So this would
Take
be
it back
so
up.
like if you have a crazy night out and you're doing crazy drugs and
Right.
you're drinking tons and you're doing coke and you're partying it up and you
Right.
feel like shit the next day.
You're gonna
That has something to do with this process, right?
Right, you're going to have this depletion. The cells and the axons aren't going to be able to make enough dopamine anymore because they don't have the components, and so there's nothing to spit out. Plus, you're also spitting out inhibitory neurotransmitters like serotonin that make you feel depressed and kind of bring you back down again, right? Because the brain's job is to regulate everything and to keep this balance. So you shoot it up, it's going to bring you back down.
So how do we get to pain from this dopamine overload?
So when we feel fear, which is that basis of phobia, you get a dumping of neurotransmitters in the brain that cause a lot of things to happen and cause a lot of things to also stop at the same time. So gut processes tend to stop, vital organ functions are increased, muscle, like blood gets pumped to the muscles, and all of that information is sent by the brain automatically down throughout your body so that things are ready to go. They're primed for action, right? So primed for fight, flight, or freeze, whatever is going to produce the best evolutionary results. Some of those neurotransmitters and hormones that are responsible, you're going to recognize endorphins, which have a similar structure to opiates. They decrease decrease pain and increase pleasure. And so what they do is they inhibit pain neurotransmitters in the brain from being taken up by the dendrites. So basically, you're still feeling the pain, but your brain isn't processing it.
Right.
Yeah.
So is this what happens when people? So again, relating to like drugs and alcohol, people can break their leg or stumble into a bookshelf and break their shoulder and not really feel it until that wears off or they have a lessened reaction to their pain in that process.
Right. She might have had a dumping of endorphins, adrenaline, cortisol, all of these things that tend to block those pain receptors. And the ultimate goal then just becomes to survive. And so part of that survival is kind of blocking that experience of pain, even though your body is experiencing it. You'll hear that sentiment from a lot of folks who experience really traumatic injuries where they don't realize it hurts until they look down
and see it.
And
then their brain goes, oh shit.
And that's a different part of the brain that picked it up, right? Yeah. So one part of the brain is in there going, oh, this is bad. Keep it down, guys. Everything's cool.
Yeah, don't look at it. Don't look at it.
It's fine. We call that side system 2, which is like the higher functioning. It's the the child that goes off to college and succeeds at everything and never does anything wrong. It's the ego. It's neither id nor superego. It's the balance.
So So that's our pain, right? That's our brain's processing of pain. Where does the phobia come in? Where does this fear of pain come into this process? So that's how our brain processes fear, which we're going to touch on again in the chemicals. I don't know if did you get to the way the brain produces the chemicals that cause pain?
Working on it.
Did I cut you off too prematurely?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So keep going.
Cut it out.
No, we don't have to edit it out. What are you talking about? We're good. I just cut you off early. I should let you keep talking.
No, it's okay. And so in the brain, you have 100 billion of these nerve cells talking to each other and sending information down through the cells in the spinal cord and throughout the body, right? So 100 billion. So that's a lot more than people really give it credit for. A billion is 1,000 million, and a million is 1,000 thousands.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot jam-packed into your brain, right? A lot doing a lot of shit all at once without your knowledge most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
System 2 is that, like I said, that ego part, the regulatory system. It's responsible for the rational experience, your conscious experience of life as well. Most animals don't have this system 2 functioning.
So that's pretty uniquely human?
It's pretty uniquely
human. Is it primate
human.
or just or human?
I don't know for sure. It just that I just found in the research
that
that
it's
most
not normal in the animal kingdom.
That.
It's more of a human experience.
In the animal kingdom, we tend to see system 1 functioning, which is really good at its job. It's largely unconscious. It's efficient. It's rapidly responding in an effort to assert dominance and maintain survival. Right? It's the primal side, and we all have that too. That's the part that tells
makes us react. Danger.
Exactly.
Danger,
That's
Will
the part
Robinson.
that tells
Danger.
us we should probably be afraid right now, right? So it's an important side that's naturally built into us, and it's regulated by that system 2 functioning that really decides whether or not it's something you should fucking freak out about, right? So we see when system 2 areas include the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex, which we know prefrontal cortex doesn't develop until later in life.
Stop laughing at me.
He's going to get another drink.
Well, yeah, I ran out.
That's okay. I've been
Keep
talking
talking.
a lot.
I'm listening.
So it's controlled by the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex that doesn't fully develop until around age 25 for most people. So before that, we're largely functioning on system 1 and a little bit of system 2. So system 2 we'll see more in later life, which is why our kids, as they go through puberty and they grow up and they hit their mid-20s, they finally realize that we were freaking right all along, right? That's where we get the dysfunction of system 1.
Wait, so is that where they realize that they're actually like fallible? That that things can happen to them? That they're not always right and their body is mortal and they're not going to live forever?
Yeah, it's really scary. It's really scary to hit that period because then you go, oh, shit.
I feel like I just hit that period in the last like 5 or 6 years. Like
You're a late bloomer.
Yeah, no surprise there.
So the problem with system 2 is that it's super exhausting to regulate system 1. And so it gets burnt out real quickly. And system 1 can get stuck in overdrive from a variety of things like PTSD. A traumatic experience can cause these system 1 functions to basically override system 2 and be on all the time. So think about feeling that alert feeling that intense fear all the time, even when you're not supposed to, right? That's system 2 just being overridden by your primal primitive brain. And that's where we get the disorder and anxiety disorders.
And that's all of our anxiety disorders, right?
Right.
They all originate there.
Right. They originate in certain general areas, I should say. and also in neurotransmitter functions within those areas, because different areas of the brain and different neurotransmitters serve different functions depending upon the area of the brain that it's in. Which, I can't even get into the deeper science of the brain because it's that maddening. 100 billion of these little things are telling your heart to beat, your eyes to blink, your stomach to process your food, that you also need whiskey simultaneously, consciously.
My dopamine levels are rising as we speak.
Exactly.
It's and we talked about this. I think we talked about this in the first episode. But the brain is a really fucked up place. Like there's so much going on, and so much that can go wrong. And it's also amazing that so much more doesn't go wrong.
That it doesn't,
right?
yeah. That
things don't just fall off the axis. That the things don't just fall off the map.
Right.
All the time.
Right.
Somehow things
miracle.
Things are still
I don't know how
functioning.
things are running. Like, that is a well-oiled machine, even if it works 10% of the time, which I feel like my brain only works 10% of the time. It's insane how all of these things are processed, but it's not surprising as well that some things don't function as they would optimally, why we have anxiety disorders, why you feel super depressed the day after drinking or the day after binging. There's a lot at play going on in the brain. There's a lot of neurotransmitters and fluid and everything that has just been drained from it. And your brain is basically trying to repair itself.
Don't you think relationships would be so much better if people took courses on the brain and how it functions and how people relate to different things, and how, hey, when this is going on, maybe it's not about you leaving the milk on the counter. Maybe it's about...
It's not about the glitter.
It's not about the glitter. Shut up.
It's not about the glitter.
That's a story that will come at another time.
So yeah, it would be important to know if someone's amygdala, which is that kind of limbic central lizard brain that they speculate is responsible for the response to pain and the response to the fear of pain, because that amygdala can become stuck. And the amygdala's primary function is learning and memory related to fear. So don't touch a hot candle because last time I touched a hot candle, it burned me. The problem with that is the brain only remembers the last time it remembered. So you never truly remember the event as it was. You only remember the event as the last time you remembered it.
So does that relate to our phobia?
It does. It does.
So tell me about algophobia. So I really think that this dive into neuroscience and into the way that our brain works is such a good foundation. Sorry, I tried to cut you off early.
No, it's okay. It's really complex.
I get weird. I get started. I start to feel rushed, but it's our podcast, so I don't really give a shit how long it is, right? Like, it doesn't matter. It could be 2 hours, and if people want to listen, great. If they don't, screw them. Just because our first one was 40 minutes and our second one was 55 minutes or 58 minutes and our third one was an hour and 15 minutes doesn't mean this one can't be an hour and 45 minutes, right? Right?
Your future.
Right?
Your future is yours.
It's like that Choose Your Own Adventure. Black Mirror, which I'm never going to watch, because why would I want to choose my own Black Mirror adventure? That just sounds super depressing. I don't like that at all.
I think it's interesting.
I don't like it.
It's an interesting concept.
You need, speaking of dopamine, and recovery after dopamine, you need 2 or 3 days of recovery after each Black Mirror episode. I don't know what's going on in your brain, but you need some recovery time after that.
Yeah, recovery time is mandatory.
I don't like it. So tell us about algophobia.
Okay, so how does all of this relate to algophobia? Well, humans and the human brain, the way it works, we learn through spoken word, writing, seeing things. We don't have to experience something firsthand in order to create a memory of it, which is pretty interesting, because we can elicit a fear response just from memory. So it's a fear that can cause panic just at the thought of it.
So what are the demographics of this phobia? What are the people that suffer from this? Who is the main... Because I found it really interesting that this, and I'll answer my own question, that the elderly is the biggest population people who suffer from algophobia.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. I could speculate. There's some studies that maybe the processes in the brain that inhibit the sensations of pain or release hormones or neurotransmitters that help to block the experience of pain tend to deplete as we get older, and maybe that's why. So literally their experience of pain is more
worse.
Intense,
Really?
right? So
it would seem like it would dull as you get older, wouldn't it?
See, that's the thing. There's a lot of speculation about it, and there's a lot of research being done about it, but the brain is so complex, it's hard to nail in one thing. But we do know it tends to happen more in the elderly demographic, and we have seen some studies that show that depletion or that lack of neurotransmitters and natural brain death, leads to an increased experience of physical pain, even though they're not in more physical pain.
So I noticed, I'm sorry if I'm getting us way off track on this, but so the elderly thing really has me interested because, you go to an old folks home or you go to a nursing home, whatever, and you hear people moaning, right? And I understand like chronic illness and things like that, but the interesting thing that you said about the fact that that you very well may experience pain worse as you get older kind of makes me want to off myself at 75 just to avoid that experience, and who knows, maybe earlier, but it seems really interesting that's when the processes seem to break down, because I would think that your body would go into defense mode where towards the end you would start to get you'd feel less and less pain. Well,
and you do see that recurring right near the final days of death, right, as the body prepares itself. It's almost like the brain stores that right until the very end. I'm not sure. Again, that's just speculation, but it does tend to be more intense of an experience, and sometimes the fear of pain can turn into the most unpleasant part of pain. I remember when my grandmother was suffering from dementia, she feared getting her toenails clipped, not her toes. Holy crap. That would be
really, that'd be like Hostel.
Yeah, right.
Which we're going to talk about
Too
later.
much Hostel.
Yeah, it'd be like Hostel, because I think there was a toe clipped in that. I'm pretty sure.
She used to really be afraid of that.
Literally.
She said it hurt, and they weren't hurting her or anything. It was just her experience of it was very hyper aware. And there's also a syndrome that we tend to see called hyperalgesia, which is an increased sensitivity to pain.
Right. People who actually literally have an increased sensitivity.
Right.
And I read a little bit about that. So there's people that actually experience pain worse than other people.
Right.
So even the smallest bit of pain could be magnified and be much more intense.
Right. And because pain is so hardwired to our emotions and our memory in that amygdala, our memory of pain can be more lasting than many other memories.
Now, what about people is there people who are, so obviously we talked about elderly briefly, but is algophobia something that does occur in younger people too?
Yeah, it can occur in anybody. I mean, it's again, an anxiety disorder can be brought out by a number of things, and you can have that predisposition to it biologically. You can have a traumatic event. It could be a vicarious experience. A lot of things can contribute. But what we know is that pain specifically is hardwired to emotions, and it creates very vivid and lasting memories. And that fear and anticipation of fear is probably where we get the variability of our pain tolerances and our experiences of pain between people.
Interesting. So, is there anything else you want to tell us about algophobia? I find it really interesting because I don't think anybody likes pain.
Oh, I don't know. There is an interesting connection called the fear-attraction connection.
I'm sorry. I don't think anybody likes severe pain.
I don't know. Okay, again, so there's the fear attraction connection, where those same neurotransmitters in different amounts can actually increase blood flow, and some people can interpret that as feeling good. And that state of fear can actually cause bonding neurotransmitters to dump, and you can actually feel closer to someone in that experience of pain together. So
that makes sense. So that's the kinky BDSM culture, right?
Well, I mean, it's also, if you
people who like to get hung by their nipples.
If you take your date out on a roller coaster, you're more likely to experience bonding than if you just went for ice cream, because a roller coaster still sends those same neurotransmitters down the brain.
They always say that about horror movies.
Yeah,
horror movies
exactly.
are a great thing to go to a horror movie that's scary,
and that's why.
And because the same chemicals that cause fear also cause arousal.
Right.
Right.
Depending upon context. And there's so many variables in context that fear and arousal run
cause
really
contact.
Cause contact. Are you getting...
Fear and arousal, context, cause contact.
Yeah, causes a fear boner.
Fear boners.
Fear boner.
Yeah. Fear boners. Where do you go from fear boners?
I think we have...
Is there a fear of fear boners?
Fear of fear boners?
Oh, we have to come up with a phobia. A phobia that's related to the fear of fear boners. That's boners that's caused by scary situations.
Right. Which is actually totally
Which
natural.
is from the show The League. That's the first time I ever heard of it anyway.
It's pretty good.
Which is awesome. So we've already gone 51 minutes before we even got into our movies, and we have so much to say about our movies.
Yeah, we do.
We watched a lot of movies this week.
And we need a drink refill.
We do. So coming up next, we're going to talk about our honorable mentions, and then we'll talk about our feature presentations that relate to Algophobia. Are you ready?
No.
No?
No.
You better be ready.
No.
'Cause it's coming.
No.
It's coming.
No. Fear of anticipation of pain. Alexa, play some calming music.
Here's a station for calming music, Mellow Folk, on Amazon Music.
Thank you. That's my jam.
You think this is going to help?
It's mellow as fuck.
Just Jack Johnson?
I don't know. I'm sad that you tried to know that.
Actually, this sounds like something we would listen to. Who is this?
Changed my mind. Never mind.
Hey, Alexa. Stop. All right, we're diving into our movies now. We had to take a quick break because we needed more alcohol,
sustenance,
more tea, and some avocado toast, which is... We're in Reno, Nevada. It's very Hollywood of us.
It's appropriate for the folk music we were just listening to.
It is. It's very LA.
Yeah. LA.
LA. Everything's
very
better in LA. But we're talking about Algophobia. But I got to say that I don't think, there's not really a lot of Algophobia specific movies.
Except for Algophobia.
There is a movie called Algophobia. I couldn't track it down. So if you're the director of Algophobia, please send us a copy because I'd like to view it. But its IMDb page was pretty sparse, so I'm guessing it wasn't the highest of budgets of films. But so I think our movies are going to focus more on just pain and the inflicting of pain and torture. Those are going to be the central themes of our movies. Although I think we have some movies that maybe are like that, but go a little beyond that and maybe get us a little deeper.
For sure.
Instead of just, there's a few that are just pain movies, but
but all of them are really good at giving you and your brain that little sensation of, that is not, no.
That's not good.
That's no.
That's not normal. I don't like it.
It's pain. Run away from it. It's aversion in its best.
So I think a lot of these types of movies we tend to, a lot of the movies we're going to talk about I don't know about the feature presentation. I'm still up in the air about that one because I don't know that I would call that one torture porn in the same way. And honestly, probably just the first couple would be put in that category. Although I hate that category because it's a really a lame designation. It's not a good category because this was a mid 2000s or early 2000s thing that kind of came up that was like, oh, these movies are just about gore and just watching suffering and watching pain. But I think those movies, honestly, there's more depth to them. Maybe not in their storyline, but there's as a filmmaking thing.
During that time, why did those kind of movies have a resurgence? But
they're not new, and that's the thing. People were like, "Oh, these are a whole new category of films called torture porn." Hello, have you seen fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Have you seen Cannibal Holocaust? Like, this is not a new genre of movies. Like, Last House on the Left. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, these are not new. Like, the whole like gore, for the sake of gore kind of thing is not a new thing. And honestly, I think there's always a little bit deeper of a message in most of these movies than just the gore. So I think it's kind of shitty. Read the Urban Dictionary definition of torture porn. It'll pretty much sum it up for you. But with that said, we're going to get into a couple of torture porn movies.
Yay.
For our honorable mentions.
Wow.
Oh, shut up. You like Hostel. It's a fun movie.
No, it was not fun. It was zero fun.
Oh, bullshit. It's not that bad. It's way not as bad as
bad.
our feature presentation.
It's pretty bad.
But I think honorable mentions, first of all, the Hostel franchise and the Saw franchise. Now, I want to say this first and foremost. I'm not going to dive into Saw. Saw features a lot of similarly graphic scenes of torture and a pretty focused bad guy in Jigsaw, which we all... If you're familiar with horror, you know the Saw franchise. I wanted to dive into it a little deeper, but I just felt like Hostel I hadn't seen in a long time, so that's what I was going to do. And I'm going to touch on Hostel because more boobs, right? It's more fun to rewatch Hostel because there's a lot of really attractive Eastern European women in that movie.
Well, yeah, that's how they get you.
That's how they get you. In fact, I had somebody on Twitter this week that was like, oh man, Hostel. They really bait and switch you after the first 45 minutes.
They do. Yeah. It's the old bait and switch.
It's like, wait, college movie? Out in Europe? We're going to bang a bunch of hot European chicks and then it goes downhill really quick after that.
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably
That's right.
is.
If you're Josh and Paxton, right? And you're traveling across Europe and somebody says, hey bro, let's go. You should go to Slovakia. All the chicks there are ready to bang, and they're just gonna let you like touch them, and you can just get all up in it. Oh, here's some pictures.
And then a guy sits on the train with you and eats meat weird and tells you that he likes to experience his food. And there's a lot of signs.
There's a lot of signs. Don't go to Slovakia.
Don't go to Slovakia.
So, sorry, Slovakians. I'm sure that's not characteristic of your actual place. And they get there and it's beautiful, right? That's a beautiful little village.
It's pretty gorgeous.
And so they check in. Too
good to be true.
They check into their hostel.
Skeptical the whole time.
They check into their hostel. They go upstairs. They walk in the room.
Thinking with their wieners.
And of course, the second they walk in, just too smoking hot.
Thinking with their wieners.
Chicks are just they're just butt naked. They're getting dressed, and then they walk by them and they go, "Oh, we're going down to the spa. You should join us." Blah blah. That's a sign that this is probably not reality. However, Eli Roth in 2005 thought this was the hostile experience that you don't want to have. So, and Eli Roth was the director, who I think is he's fun. He does some interesting stuff. I like some of Eli Roth's stuff for sure.
He's so
he likes to take gore to another level.
Thorough with his gore.
I watched Cabin Fever not too long ago too.
With the unicorn?
No, you're thinking of Cabin in the Woods. And Quentin Tarantino is an executive producer of Hostel as well.
Yeah, I know.
So
You made me watch it at like 8 a.m. on a Saturday.
if you don't, I did recently. We watched Hostel, the first one, start to finish. If you haven't seen it, let me give a quick synopsis because two college students, Paxton and Josh, are traveling across Europe with their Icelandic friend Oli. In Amsterdam, they get kicked out of a nightclub for fighting and visit prostitutes in a brothel. After they return to their hostel, they realize there's a curfew and they're locked out. A man in a nearby apartment, Alexei, invites them to stay at his place that night. He convinces them to visit a hostel in Slovakia filled with desperate, beautiful women. And these hot chicks end up leading them into a building that houses rooms for rich tourists that indulge their hedonistic desires to torture and basically do whatever they want to their captors, including ultimately killing them. That'll put a damper on your little vacation.
Oh, for sure.
And
it's just awful.
So the first 30 to 45 minutes, I don't even know where it stops, but they're having a great time. They're just partying. They're banging chicks. Oli is getting them into all kinds of trouble. Mischief. But then it takes a really bad turn, and they get led down. Josh gets led away from the group and ends up with this dude who they met on the train, who is a wannabe surgeon who ends up ripping out his insides. Paxton is then grabbed, thrown in a room. Josh is tossed into a room with this wannabe surgeon, ends up flayed open, getting his guts ripped out by this creepy dude who paid a shit ton of money to apparently torture people.
Yeah.
So Paxton goes and looks for his buddy and eventually finds him in this torture room, right? And sees all this going on, and then while he's freaking out about it, gets abducted himself, right? And then thrown into his own room with his own sadistic torturer. And this is where the fear of pain part comes in for me the best with Hostel. This is why I picked this movie as an honorable mention, because just the scene of Paxton in the chair,
waking up,
he sees what's going on, right? And the scenes of the drill, like going right to his forehead, but then he stops, right? And he's freaking out. Right? So then the guy goes and he grabs a chainsaw.
Yep.
And he picks up the chainsaw, and he gets the chainsaw all the way down right to his scalp, and then he stops. And then what does Paxton do? Do you remember?
He
vomits. Tell me about that response. Is that a real response that somebody would
Hell yes. Think about how much stress your brain is under in that moment when you're trying to process what the hell's going to happen next, and your ears hear that thing coming closer to you, and it's happened twice, and there's all these dumps of things. So I mean, if he was, drinking or eating anything before that event, it wasn't even digested yet. And when those primal instincts kick in, those secondary things, that's part of that response, is get anything that's not needed out.
So that fear response is the thing that sold me on Hostel, because it's got all the pain and torture, and there's Achilles tendons being cut in half, which is my worst thing ever. You have a problem with compound fractures.
Broken legs, yeah.
For me, like Achilles tendons being cut, ooh, that's the worst.
It's bad.
That is terrible.
And if you're over 30, you really, before you do anything strenuous, should really stretch your Achilles tendon.
Yeah, you never know when that thing's going to coil up.
You've got a large chance of tearing it after 30.
That's so scary. I don't like that.
It's really
I
terrifying.
hate that.
I know. Stretch your Achilles.
Ugh.
Do it.
But this movie's got a ton of really graphic scenes, but that scene in particular really highlights the fear of pain to me.
Yeah.
Which again, I said, it's not going to really be the center of the focus. This movie's, this phobia, and these movies are more about pain being a central theme,
or the fear of the anticipation of pain.
Yeah,
possible.
Which I felt like that was a good scene for that.
Huge.
But that brings us to our next honorable mention. These whiskeys are starting to hit me, Chris.
Honorable
mention.
Honorable mention.
The 1987 classic horror film and franchise, directed by Clive Barker, Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Just back it up against the wall. You heard him. Back it up. Don't make us put some pain on you.
Pain? How dare you use that word?
He's got pins in his head.
What you think of as pain is only a shadow. Pain has a face. Allow me to show it to you. Gentlemen, I am pain.
And I believe that clip is from Hellraiser 4, Bloodline. But that sums up the franchise pretty well, and sums up Pinhead and his deal pretty well. But the film of the Hellraiser film, which is a classic, and one of the biggest, it's right up there with Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and all the great franchises. But this film involves the resurrection of Frank, who's played by Sean Chapman, who had opened the door to an alternate dimension and had his body torn to pieces by creatures known as Cenobites. And years later, Frank's brother, Larry, moves into their late mother's abandoned house with new wife, Julia. An accident causes some of Larry's blood to spill on the attic floor, which triggers Frank's resurrection. To complete his resurrection, he requires more blood, which Julia provides, while Kirsty Cotton, played by Ashley Lawrence, who's also going to be at Sinister Creature Con, by the way, which is kind of cool. I want to go to that. I want to go to there in Sacramento, played by Ashley Lawrence. Laurie's daughter discovers Frank's puzzle box, which leads her to meet with the Cenobites and their leader, Pinhead, played by Doug Bradley, who will also be at Sinister Creature Con.
It's a reunion.
Pinhead. That's pretty badass. Who most of you know is an iconic horror character. Pinhead's kind of a badass horror icon. But Hellraiser is just like a BDSM wet dream. That's the only way I can describe it. I mean, it's these Cenobites make it clear that they're not really out. They're not angels or demons. And they're actually, I think they're supposed to be some group of hell-based fallen theologians that were from a certain sect of something.
Sounds really complex.
But they are just out to have some hedonistic kicks. And so the people they end up pulling into their dimension get the best and worst of pain and pleasure. That's kind of the idea. So it's not just pain, but ultimately they make them suffer. But there's also pleasure involved too, because Frank said that there's both sides. But in the very end, I guess it's a pretty bad deal. It's not a good thing.
If it sounds too good to be true, probably.
When it comes to making pain a central theme of your franchise, Hellraiser does a really good job of it. Did a good job. Because pain is what it's all about. I mean, we heard Pinhead say that's what he is. He is the face of pain. Which, as far as honorable mentions go, this is a movie that we definitely had to have. I'm not going to break it down because there's so much on Hellraiser. This whole franchise is a perfect, it's an epic franchise. It's so good. But with that, because we've gone so long in this episode, let's get right to our feature presentation.
And now our feature presentation.
So our feature presentation this week is on Martyrs.
This was just agonizing from start to finish.
This whole week, I've been telling Chris, I'm sorry, honey, but you have to watch this movie.
No.
And honestly, I watched this movie for the first time about 6 months ago. And I vowed that I would never watch it again. Mm-hmm. I actually genuinely really liked it. I thought it was a great movie, but it's a brutal watch. It's a really, really tough movie to sit through.
It hurts my soul to watch
tough.
it.
And honestly, during our viewing of it today, I was watching your reactions a lot, and there was a lot of covering your eyes and.
Shut up.
Am I wrong?
Seeing that stuff, It's bad.
It's bad.
People are experiencing a lot of emotional pain, and they're inflicting physical pain on other people, and it all just makes me very uncomfortable.
So unlike our other movies that were, somewhat superficial,
this one was deep as hell.
this is a deep movie. This movie has some deep roots to it that kind of, you think about it after it's over. It's not one of those that you're like, oh, that was just a bunch of gore. This movie is
was
about...
a bunch of gore.
It was a bunch of gore, but it was about a lot more than just the gore. Which is why I chose it, because pain is such a central element of this movie, but in a way it's not just physical, it's metaphysical too, which I found really interesting. And I really love this movie. I think it's a wonderful movie. It's a terrible watch. It's a really hard watch.
It's really hard.
But it's a great movie. And honestly, like when we found this, when this phobia came up, like when this was the next episode, it was one of the first things that popped into my head. Because it's brutal. And even the director said he's like, I don't understand why anybody would want to watch this thing, which I think we mentioned earlier.
For those of you that never want to watch it because you don't want to experience that in an hour and a half of your life, here's a synopsis of what goes on. So Martyrs is a French film from 2008, directed by Pierre... Oh, what did I do with the information here? You don't have to
directed by... I like to tell, give credit where credit's due. Right? Horror nerds love the actual information about
That's
movies.
True.
So let's give them. I got to bring it up here on my computer. It was directed by Pascal Laugier, which I'm probably butchering his name. And it stars Morjana Alou, Milan Jampagna, Catherine Bijan, and I lost my place. Gave you all the information. And it by the way, the lead girl, she was
really good.
She is so pretty, too.
Yeah.
And she has a really interesting... She's like Chinese and French mix.
She made
Beautiful.
me like feel so much of her emotional pain from that experience.
Such
She
a
was
good
really,
performance.
Ugh.
The performances in the movie were fantastic, and honestly, the movie itself it's a work of art. It's really, really well done movie. Like, I cannot say enough about how well it was put together. It is just horrifying.
Yeah.
Though. Okay, synopsis. 15 years after a horrifying experience of abduction and prolonged torture, Lucy embarks on a bloody quest for revenge against her oppressors. Along with her childhood friend Anna, who also suffered abuse, she quickly descends without hope into madness and her own delusions. Anna, left on her own, begins to re-experience what Lucy did when she was only 12 years old. So Lucy basically starts having these... Lucy and Anna get out of their mental institution,
Mm-hmm.
and Lucy goes and shotgun blasts the family, mom, dad, 18-year-old kid, younger sister, with a shotgun. Goes through and blows them away. Anna, her friend, she calls her friend and basically says, hey, I did this stuff. And Anna's like, are you sure it was the right family? Because...
Did you double, triple
son of a
check?
bitch. Like...
Measure twice, cut once.
Yeah. Because are you sure? Because you're just going off of some newspaper clippings, and because she'd been in the mental institution for many years. Eventually, Lucy shows up. Anna shows up to help Lucy after she had blown away this family. And Lucy is then plagued by this monstrous creature who Chris is like, is this a supernatural movie? Is there
What's going on?
Yeah, what's going on? And I was like, I'll just watch, because we realized the monster that's attacking Lucy is
it's an expression of her experience of pain, and It's like a personification of it, in a way that she can deal with it. But what I felt was really insane was that all of this was being elicited by a fear response of a memory of pain, which caused them to create personifications that truly did elicit pain on them, which was themselves.
Right.
So the pain and suffering caused more pain and suffering.
Right, because she's now inflicting pain on herself that she's attributing to this monster that doesn't exist, right? And this monster ultimately ends up killing her,
right,
by suicide,
right,
in the movie. Spoiler alert, by the way.
But the
we do
monster
spoilers here.
too, like the monster was a way for them to transcend into something other than their experience of pain, right? 'Cause
right.
that's what they had been taught in this, crazy underground lab. How to transcend that pain into the afterlife, but not lose the physical body.
Right, which she hasn't. We don't know anything about this at this point, right? She's just experiencing this dramatic episode after she shotgunned this whole family, right? She's going through the house, and it's brutal. I mean, it's the depictions of violence in this movie are and gore is intense. It's super intense. So if that's not something you can handle, don't watch it. But it's really intense. And she's struggling with this, and she's struggling with the fact that she just confronted her abusers. Mm-hmm. And then this monster who's been plaguing her whole life. We see it when she's young. She talks about it. We don't see it personified.
Did you realize who that monster was?
Who?
It was the girl she left behind in the dungeon.
That's right. Yeah.
And that was her personification of the pain and guilt that she felt
because she had left her there.
That woman that she saw behind.
And that was the one that that Anna ended up rescuing out of the dungeon, right?
Yes.
She was still alive.
Yes.
And that had been 15 years before?
Yeah.
So she had been there for 15 years, still suffering in that dungeon. So ultimately, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but they pulled Anna sees Lucy commit suicide, which we realize that there's no monster. The monster was inside Lucy's head. And then Anna goes back in the house, and she's going, this chick just murdered her family. Do we even know this family was the right family? And then Anna finds
secret passageway to a huge underground
torture
chamber where
and she finds a girl.
Madam.
Yeah, well, no, that was a whole different place.
Oh yeah,
they took her away from there. So the house, she finds another girl. She pulls her up out of the dungeon. She gets her cleaned up.
She peels giant staples out of her head.
Staples out of her top of her head. Scalps her because there's no other way to get it off. This girl is in bad shape. I mean,
she's very malnourished.
She is bad shape.
She's got barbed wire wrapped around her stomach. She's got a chastity belt that clearly hasn't been taken off in years.
Yeah, it's ugly. So she finally gets that, and then the girl ends up killing herself because she's finally able to free herself, and she's I'm sure been planning to kill herself for as long as she possibly could because she's been suffering so much pain.
In some of the research that I saw, it was her demon and her inner projected monster came out had a lot to do with cockroaches. She would feel cockroaches on her skin, and then that would make her want to literally do anything to get her skin off, which is why she was cutting into herself.
Oof.
Again, that drive to madness from all of the pain
and torture,
emotionally and physically that they experienced, just drives them to continue to inflict pain on themselves. So it's like pain begets pain.
And as Anna tries to help this girl, right, and she's actually cut herself, she's probably about to die anyway, this girl takes a bullet to the head.
Yeah.
And we look up, and there's this black clad gang of
led by
looking like CIA agents kind of. Yeah, we don't even see the woman at that point.
Very out of place.
Basically that take this girl And so the movie takes a huge shift, and we realize that this torture was not just some madman torturing girls in his basement. It's this like weird nihilistic cult.
Research.
Yeah, that are researching pain and take Anna to this place where they now are strapping her in and torturing her, but it's for a purpose.
Right.
Which is a really interesting twist. So this group is they're a very nihilistic group. They're a very, they're not just out for torture.
Right.
We see that. We see them even comforting her at a few different times as they're torturing her.
They feed her, which means they're trying to keep them alive.
Well, they want to keep her alive. That's part of the deal, right?
Right.
So.
But barely.
Because the whole point of this thing is to get these girls, and the whole reason they've abducted these girls and abused them for so long is to get them to the ultimate breaking point of torture, where they are not quite dead but still alive, where they experience some sort of transcendental moment, which is a really crazy concept.
Yeah. The gal talks about how their ultimate goal is to feed the suffering, and that there are nothing but victims in this world now, and martyrs are the one who survive despite the face of suffering and see this afterlife. And I thought it was interesting that they used the Greek word in a little passage in the movie, because the Greek word that martyr comes from is Greek for a witness. So they were literally trying to elicit a witness to the afterlife through systematic torture, which is insane, because they're kind of nihilists. They don't necessarily believe in anything, but yet they're still desperately seeking out an answer, despite not believing in something.
Yeah, Mademoiselle makes a really, she makes a statement that martyrs have always been religious martyrs. They've always been the ones that we look at, and they believe they're so steeped in their belief that they are willing to endure torture and pain and all this crazy shit to achieve whatever their goal is, heaven or enlightenment or the afterlife. But then she goes on to explain to Anna, before Anna ends up being tortured. She explains to her that all of these, she goes through this flip book of all these people throughout history who have
all had the same
look on their face. They've experienced martyrdom, but they were atheists. They weren't believers. They didn't have any specific thing. They were in a car accident for 9 hours, and they didn't have this martyrdom. So the philosophy of this group then is the pain, the ultimate, all this crazy pain that you go through.
What is it worth?
It ends up at the end showing you the afterlife,
right?
Showing you enlightenment, showing you transcendence, showing you what they call transfiguration.
Right.
You endured pain for so long that you experience this transfiguration. And I really thought it was really interesting, because I've always described existentialism as nihilism with a blindfold on. Accepting there is no meaning in life, except by which you create yourself, right? So there's no basis in like belief. Everything's it's a delusion. Existentialism is a delusion, and I think these nihilists are like, they're failed nihilists. Well, they're flailing nihilists. They're nihilists that are like trying to flap their wings when they jump off the building.
To find some firm evidence one way or another, right? But when she does, Mademoiselle blows her fucking brains out. So
spoiler alert.
What did we've spoiled this movie already? What did Anna whisper to her that made a nihilist go, well,
she wasn't a nihilist. I think all of them, they were not nihilists by the time they got to this point of this cult.
Maybe that made her a nihilist then.
No,
But-
I don't think so. I think they weren't nihilists by the end of the movie. They were definitely seeking the afterlife. So they did not believe this was the only thing that there was, and they didn't believe that it was despair.
Blew her brains out then.
Well, she said at the end that doubt, continued doubting, right? Basically, is what she said.
Keep doubting.
Keep doubting. The pain that they had brought Anna to, and then Anna's experience with enlightenment or the afterlife, whatever she told to Mademoiselle, ultimately, Mademoiselle realized that the journey is as important as the destination, right? So that this experience of pain in life, right, the suffering that we experience as humans, we experience death, we experience
Strife,
all kinds of pain, and whether it's physical, mental, economic, any kinds of pain that we experience, right? We go through pain on a daily basis in one way or another, and ultimately our loved ones die.
Yeah.
People around us die.
Everything has a cycle.
We see people suffer with cancer and kids getting killed and abused and all the terrible things that happen in the world. Apparently, Mademoiselle wanted to convey the idea that pain is worth it. That doubt that we experience with the life around us is somehow part of the process.
See, I interpreted it a little differently. I interpreted it as that doubt being more non-confirmation of what exists in the afterlife that allows us as humans to give our lives meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
So it's that doubt, that non-confirmation, that not knowing what happens after life that truly allows us to give our lives meaning. And now that Mademoiselle knew
what it was,
she's
her
like,
life is, she didn't need to tell anybody.
No.
She had fulfilled that.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie is, for this topic, right, this algophobia topic about, which I feel like is like down here compared to where this movie goes. This movie goes way beyond this topic.
It doesn't though.
Because it goes this metaphysical place about what pain is about. But what's interesting is, like, we think about elderly people and how they experience this fear of pain,
and
the fear of death, and the fear of the end of life.
Later
right?
in life,
we always end up here somehow.
Yeah, later in life, that's a huge part of our emotional experience of life. Is that reconciling that, yeah, we are going to die. Yes, my body is failing.
Do you think she realizes that morally it would be wrong to tell everybody what she heard?
I wonder. I would speculate.
Because she's craving this meaning, and she finally gets it. Do you think she realizes that, like, in the mortal life, people shouldn't know what is coming next?
I think part of her realizes that, yes. But I think truly it's more like a resolution of, well, now that I know, there's no reason to live.
Did she have her existential gestalt moment that you psychologists like to talk about so much?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you see her actively taking off her makeup. She's stripping off the layers.
Right.
She's,
I like that.
Taking off her eyelashes. She's literally getting down to the bare bones of everything.
Of who she is, like who she really is.
And
I like that. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and then she
blows her head off.
Blows her brain out after telling other people to keep doubting. So to me, that's where the emphasis is. Keep doubting. Keep wondering. Keep curious about what is after this, because that's what's worth it, is the curiosity and that process, not what you find out at the end.
It's interesting, when you look back into history and you look back and philosophers and things like that, like pain is a central part of religion and philosophy. My background's in theology, and when I studied, there's so many passages in the Bible that talk about suffering.
And going through suffering and trusting the suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the one that always has always stuck out to me is, it is better to suffer for doing good than for doing evil. That's from 1 Peter in the Bible. But then, like, you look at like guys like Nietzsche, who said to live is to suffer, right? Because that's the nihilistic viewpoint. That's that whole viewpoint that life is suffering. So why not off yourself now? Right? Like that's always been my view of nihilism. Like if you really believe that viewpoint, then
why are you hanging around?
Then why are you still around? You know,
anything's got to be better.
That's not a directive. That's just my thoughts on that philosophy.
No, that is definitely not a directive.
Call the suicide hotline if you feel that urge. But you know, if that's really what you view life as, just pain, and that there's nothing that can make it better except for death, right? Which I feel like these people, this cult, whatever they were, that's their viewpoint, but they all were seeking to find that thing that was something extra.
Yeah.
You know, that ultimate moment. So
really deep, really exhausting, like
super fucking depressing.
Set aside a whole day for yourself and then like watch it and then like take a bath and cry and have some tea and like get a hug and eat some chocolate, you know, replace the neurotransmitters in your brain, allow your brain to heal emotionally from this.
Maybe get some extra dopamine that might end up bad tomorrow, but don't worry about it. Just drink, be merry tonight. But the next episode is not depressing.
No, it's so fun.
It's going to be a fun one. So this one was deep. It was depressing.
We're getting out of that shit.
I mean, we are all humans, and we have to all struggle with the human experience.
We have to face it.
Right? But the next episode is going to be fun, but it's going to be foul.
It will be quite foul.
Very foul.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Yes.
Are you proud of me?
I was trying to think of another one, but I couldn't come up quick enough.
It'll be excellent.
Oh, see, you're so good at this. Wordsmith.
I don't know. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. We're going to be touching on, is it electrophobia? Algophobia? I don't know. Electrophobia? Something like that. Fear of chickens.
Fear of chickens.
Fear of motherfucking chickens.
Fear of chickens. I'm really excited to watch the movies that you have in store for me.
There's going to be some, we're going to have some fun with this one. So, Fear of chickens, guys, enjoy. Waiting through your depression this week after you finish this episode.
We're here for you.
And please talk to us. I know we rambled a bit on this one. This was kind of a tough one.
It was a tough one to get through. So thanks for wading through the quicksand with us. And now we're out of it.
We're gonna have some fun with the next one though. So be ready. We're gonna have a blast. Until next time.
Stay afraid. Stay very afraid.